on the Natural Alessio. This is Max Danzig. This is Simply Kingfisher. Hey, Mark Machine Omni. This is Kurt Batman Pellegrino. Hey, this is Rashad.
Hey, this is Joe Dirksen. You're listening to Full Contact Fighter Radio with Jeff Wombat Mazeras.
You're listening to Full Contact Fighter Radio with Jeff Wombat Mazeras.
Oh, okie dokie. Let's get this show on the road for another action-packed edition of Full Contact Fighter Radio. And James, today I have a dream. Well, it's not really a dream, it's a plan. It's not really a plan, it's an idea. My idea is this. We'll review UFC 123, Rampage versus Machida, and then we will do literally nothing else. But in there, I'm sure there'll be a lot of off-topic jabbering, and probably at least 2 references to Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, my brain is... I've only got so much capacity for work, and speaking seems like work now after the amount of turkey stuffing and mashed potatoes I've consumed today. Because, of course, today is a holiday in the United States of America called Thanksgiving.
Yep, and you know what it's called up here? What is it called up here in Canada?
What's that?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, today's called exactly. Thursday in Canada. Thanksgiving up here was months and months ago, so I have long since all the turkeys up here are long since dead and forgotten.
Yeah, well, for us, in my stomach, they're all too real because I had plate number 5. That's 5 full plates. Yeah, I was actually kind of proud of that in a gluttonous way.
That's almost an entire turkey.
Yeah, I don't actually want to I want to move on and talk about something else because now the more I think about it, the more it actually makes me feel that.
All right, well, let's move on and talk about what we're actually supposed to be talking about, which is the UFC. And so Quentin Jackson squeaks out a decision over Lyoto Machida, and this is the second UFC in a row where the main event went to a decision, and the decision was something I personally did not agree with and I thought was quite silly. I didn't think that Yushin Okami should have beaten Nate Marquardt, and I really don't think that Quentin Jackson beat Lyoto Machida. And before I get into that, I'd like to open the floor to what you think for a change.
Well, I gotta say, I thought I watched it twice because I went back and I automatically kind of wanted to go and see through the eyes of the judges and see if I could figure out what they were looking at. Mm-hmm. So this is not my opinion, but this is what I figure if I were to take the position that he did indeed beat Machida.
Right.
Then I think that what it means, I think what ended up happening is that they were looking at the way Machida was bopping around the octagon, staying out of the way. Yes, he would come in and hit Rampage with a combination or two, but it would be a long time until he would do it again. He would literally, he was hitting like 2 combinations per 5-minute round. So the rest of that time, Rampage was on the inside of the octagon, holding down the octagon and seeming to be aggressive. He was throwing, he wasn't landing, but he was throwing. And so I think that maybe by the end of those 15 minutes, they had said, well, he is clearly the aggressor, and Machida is clearly, not as aggressive. That's all I can figure. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think I agree that Machida won.
Yeah.
Or should have gotten that fight. But at the end of the other thing is also, who cares?
Yes.
I don't know.
Thank you.
That's also how I feel about that fight because honestly, I mean, I'm gonna echo the words of Rampage Jackson. He said it's not the ultimate elusive guy championship. It's the ultimate fighting championship, and I guess I kind of appreciate Machida's style, but I also it's like food. Like okay, I know that quinoa is a super grain. It's very good for you.
Yeah.
I have yet to find a preparation of quinoa that. Yeah, all my Whole Foods, granola, hippie, yoga, the demographic that's into quinoa, vegan friends, they all tell me that they swear they could come up with a quinoa recipe that would blow my mind. I would still rather have a hamburger. And that's kind of how I feel about Machida's fighting. I understand that I should appreciate every last bit of it, and it's good for me as a martial artist to see how intelligent he is, but I still kind of want to watch Rampage throw hard combos at somebody and stand right in front of somebody.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, the way I thought of it is this. Okay, there's a difference between fighting and self-defense. You know what I mean? Like, Rampage wasn't trying to rape Machida. You know what I mean? But Machida was... You know what I mean?
Yeah, but That would add anything would have added a little more excitement to that fight. Maybe that would have been an edge. Maybe that would have made me more excited. Whoa, that guy's trying to rape that other guy.
Well, yeah. But you know what I mean, though. Like, there's a difference between something designed for self-defense and something designed for, fighting. And Machida was sort of in more sort of self-defense mode. It was like he was in a prison shower,
Yeah.
And Rampage was trying to corner him.
He kind of had the look. He kind of had the look of a guy who's in a prison shower. His eyes were kind of wide. His head was leaned back.
Yeah. Machida fights like a man who's facing, incalculably. Machida fights like a man that's facing 6 other dudes, and he's waiting for his 5 other dudes to arrive. He fights like a guy who's completely overwhelmed, outgunned, and waiting for backup. You know what I mean? And all he has to do is survive until his backup arrives by staying away from this, assault. You know what I mean? Like, he's fighting like a guy who's waiting for backup to arrive. And he does. He stays away from his opponent and throws reverse punches, and he has this look in his eye, like he has kind of an oh shit look in his eye, like oh shit,
and he really does. It's something. Have you noticed that look on his face? It gets big. It's really, really projected when someone throws a jab at him.
Yeah, he looks
not a power shot, just a plain old. All you get to do is throw a jab at him, and he makes the face you just described.
yeah, he looks terrified. It looks like the kind of face that I would make if I was like walking down an alley, and then someone came out of like a shadowy corridor and casually pulled out a steak knife and like asked me for my wallet. I would have like kind of a. No, it's not true.
A Machida face?
Yeah, I'm a man among men. I wouldn't do. I would pull the steak knife out of his hand and I'd plunge it in his ear. But no, realistically, I would be I would have an oh shit face. My eyes would open till they looked like saucers, and I would be probably terrified. The way Machida looks for literally the entire duration. In every single fight. But
at every point of action in the entire fight. Yeah.
But the way I saw it was this: like Machida, he took Rampage down I think once, or knocked Rampage down once. Rampage kind of took Machida down once. But it was Rampage moving forward, it was Machida moving back, and at the end of the day, I guess, and when all else is the same, the guy that goes forward should be given the nod just to discourage backing up, And
do you think it's almost karma? Do you think it's almost karma for the Shogun Machida 1 fight? Like in terms of bad decisions going his way, one time around, it's like it's come back. He gets a bad decision on him coming back the other way.
That one was just flat out ridiculous. Like, that one was just insane. The first Shogun versus Machida fight was like, there was not a single person, except for those 3 judges, there was not a single person alive that thought that was a good decision. And
I agree with that. The other difference between Rampage Machida and the Shogun Machida fight is Machida was absolutely beat to hell at the end of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
He was just destroyed. And Rampage didn't have a scratch on him. In the grand scheme of things, in comparison. I don't think Rampage was hurt on last Saturday night.
You think Machida was hurt? I don't think either guy was really that dinged up.
No, I wasn't implying that either. I was just saying, like, for sure Rampage wasn't. He looked fine. He probably took a few cracks here and there, a few scrapes and bruises, but yeah, nowhere near. You couldn't test the damage of both guys and decide who the winner was, because I don't think either of them took enough.
Yeah, well, whatever. You could make a case to say that either guy won, but realistically, neither the Rampage versus Machida decision and the Marquardt versus Okami decision, neither one was like, in the grand scheme of things, they weren't maybe even not even top 10 in the worst decisions ever. Like up there with, like, say, the Brandon Vera versus Randy Couture decision, or the Machida versus Shogun 1 decision, or the Baz Rutten versus Kevin Randleman decision. There's a bunch of ones out there that are just like, what were the judges? Were they passing around some wacky tobacco? Were they on the reefer when making their decision? Because I don't know what. So this one, whatever. I mean, I see you could make a case for Rampage winning, just like you could make a case for Okami winning. But I just don't agree with that case. I thought that Machida controlled the fight better, and that he, it was more of a Machida-style fight than a Rampage-style fight. And that's why I thought Machida
And that was
won.
one of the first things he said. That was one of the first things Rampage said. He looked shocked that he won. He said that he kind of gave Machida a lot of praise. And one of the main things he said was, he's like, I got to hand it to Machida because I couldn't get off my game plan. And so, that's the way it went. And it certainly went that way. It certainly appeared that way because, I don't know. At the same time, though, I look back and I wonder, listening to the Rampage being interviewed about the Machida fight. Let's be honest. I would. This is another opinion. This is the best Rampage we've seen in a while.
You think?
In the sense of I think of his aggression and like his wanting to come forward, engaging. For example, a guy that has proven himself to be a counter striker, and be dangerous in all kinds of crazy positions like Machida. Rampage didn't seem to have gotten the memo. Whether or not he was connecting, he was still moving forward, like brawling, old Pride-style Rampage. He just wasn't getting off his combinations.
Yeah, but Rampage has
you
always...
can't fault him for that.
He's always been like that. I mean, I don't think I can think of a single fight where he hasn't been like that.
No, but in his last performance against Rashad Evans,
that was just
he didn't seem to have the same...
Yeah, but that's because Rashad was rushing him. Like, Rampage couldn't move forward because Rashad was moving into him and pinning him against the cage. I mean, you do know the guy's name is Rampage for a reason, you know? He moves forward. That's what he does. And just because Rashad Evans managed to bull rush him into the fence and, you know, wall install him through a fight doesn't mean that Rampage was moving back. He was just, you know, Rashad was moving forward more than Rampage.
Not saying that. He just, I don't know, he just seemed to kind of deteriorate by the end of that fight. He just kind of... And I guess what I'm saying is that in this fight, he was still... Yeah, he was still moving forward, still trying, still coming after Machida. He just wasn't putting it together.
Yeah, well...
But anyway, I don't know. Neither of those guys should be happy with that win.
No, I don't think either of them are.
Even if Machida got it, it's like, you know...
I think at the end of the fight, though, I think Machida was expecting that he won, and I think Rampage was expecting also that Machida won. Because when they raised Rampage's hands, the expression on his face was like, you know, a guy who's not convicted of murder after being, you know, arrested, soaked in someone's blood. Just like, you know, you're... Yeah. I'm not, you know... He seemed to be...
And Machida looked down.
Yeah, and Machida
like a dishonored samurai warrior.
Yeah, like a boy that wanted a bike for Christmas and instead got a sweater or something, a really ugly, itchy sweater at that. So Machida clearly thought he'd won.
I was trying to keep with the whole Japanese thing, like his father would, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe
they should go. Maybe they should eliminate judges and just go in kind of like an honor system. And at the end of fights, ask both fighters who they thought won. Like maybe each fighter should get to vote, you know, who they thought won the fight. Because I'm pretty sure, and then have them go on the honor system. Because I'm pretty sure Rampage thought Machida won, and I'm pretty sure Machida thought Machida won. And as close as the judges are to the fight, there's two people who are closer, and the referee should get to vote too. What do you think?
Okay. And if they can't decide, how about this? And if they can't decide, they continue another round.
Yeah, and then that round.
Oh, wait.
And then if they can't decide, they continue another round, and then that round is decided solely on the opinion of Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, or no. It's decided by Jacob Stitch Duran, that dude that's in every shot on every UFC.
No, that's
the dude that puts Vaseline on.
No, he's got stuff to do. You get Freddie Prinze Jr. from Malcolm in the Middle. You put him in a little chair over the octagon, like some kind of weird leprechaun or Mr. Mixelplick or something, and you just get him to watch.
Do you have a cane and like a patch over his eye to make him look more diabolical?
Yeah, sure. A striped suit, a top hat would be fine. And you just get him to decide, and then I'd be happy with that. I think I have faith in his ability to make, you know, the proper... Maybe the problem with judges is that they're too educated. They know too much about boxing and wrestling and judo. What we should be getting is just some guy off the street that can watch a fight and not be biased by all this crazy knowledge, right? You just say, who won that fight, you know?
And so in other words, in this fight, for example, it would get really quiet. It would get really quiet for a second, and this judge, this guy from just off the street, he would just say something like, Rampage wears a chain! And that's why he went.
No, it would be Freddie Prinze Jr., and he would have given that to Machida, just because, you know, he made Rampage look like a guy chasing a chicken on roller skates.
Yeah, which, by the way, I must say, remember that in Rocky 2, Rocky did catch a chicken. So maybe Rampage should look at that next time he fights Machida. I don't know. I just think it's funny at the end of the day that they were talking about rematch, and then Dana White in the post-conference press conference seemed way underwhelmed by that prospect.
Yeah, well, I don't particularly want to see a rematch of that fight. I want to see Rampage versus Shogun.
I don't either.
I'd see Rampage versus Shogun again. I think that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But whatevs. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. And Machida should really stop backing up. Is he aware of what the UFC judges use to judge fights? Is he aware that aggression is one of the criteria they look for? I'm not sure if he has read, because you can't do all that backing up, you know?
It's frustrating.
Yeah. You know, it's effective punching, it's effective striking, effective grappling, aggression, and octagon control, right? And whatever, he's got the effective striking and the effective grappling, but the aggression and octagon control in all rounds went to Rampage. So I guess the more I talk about this, the more I agree Rampage did win the fight, but I still think somehow Machida did. Machida would have won in Pride. If this was Pride, Machida would have won. Actually, that's probably also not true.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I like. This is where I differ from in martial arts philosophy from Lyoto Machida's philosophy. The philosophy of karate, as you've mentioned, is that one punch, one kill mentality.
Yeah, it never works.
And he seems to go that way. He seems to back up, move around, use his footwork, even using correct lateral movement, getting from side to side out of the danger zone for a while, then way far away.
Mm-hmm.
And then he fires off a rear knee really hard, and then he gets out.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is this: you were talking about the self-defense thing. I think that's perfect for self-defense.
Mm.
I think that in the octagon, though, you need to understand that you have 4-ounce gloves on, so you can't take chances the way you can in boxing, where you can use a 10-ounce glove in ways you can't use a 4-ounce glove. That is true.
Mm.
But if you're the one throwing strikes, if you throw 5 or 6 in a row, something's going to get through. And with 4-ounce gloves, there's more propensity to land some damage.
Mm.
So I always feel like Lyoto Machida, it's wasted. Yes, it's efficient movement in the sense that he gets out of the way of danger for him, but his aggression seems to be wasted.
Mm. Well,
if you're going to penetrate in and hit somebody with one shot, and you did it that easily, why not 4? Because something's going to really hurt him. But then what he does, he bounces away, and he's got to start. He's got to reset the clock and start all over again.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what drives us nuts watching it.
Now, I have 2 things to say. First of all, the whole idea of one punch, one kill, that only works on the extraordinarily elderly. Most people you can't.
Again, back to UFC.
Most people you'd have a hard time killing them with one punch. And secondly, the reason that Machida jumps in, throws one punch, and gets out is because if you throw combinations, then you're in a clinch and you're getting taken down. The reason Machida's so hard to take down is because he jumps in, throws one punch, one kick, one knee, and he jumps out again. If he were to jump in and try and throw 4 or 5, then someone would be double-legging him and tackling him to the mat.
Oh, I don't mean knees. I'm talking about
or even punches.
Knee, uppercut, hook,
elbow. Even punches. In boxing, if you throw more than a couple punches, you end up in a clinch, and Machida would be the same way. In MMA, the reason he's so elusive is because he jumps in, throws 1, and gets out, and jumps in, throws 1, and gets out. If he throws 2, 3, or 4, Rampage would clinch with him and probably be trying to take him down. So that's why Machida only throws the 1. So if he threw 4, there's more likelihood he would get through, but there's also more likelihood that he would get taken down or clinched, which would make him less elusive. So, it's a toss-up. The more chance of knocking him out, but also more chance of getting taken down. And he would rather throw the 1 and, not be taken down, less likely he'd be taken down, than throw more and whatever. You know what I mean? I'm babbling. The point is, if you're not fighting someone that's 90+ years old, you probably have to hit him more than once.
One punch, one kill doesn't work.
Yeah, you got to look for more than 1. So, is there really anything left to say about the Quinton Jackson the Rampage versus Machida fight? I'm not really sure there is.
Well, no, I just think the future for Rampage is what they're talking about next for him is, I don't know. I'll be interested to see where they put him, because I'm getting to this point with Rampage where, it's fun to see him fight for the title, but I also kind of want to see. He's starting to make me think this would be a really good guy to test the up and comers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really hoping that John Jones. I'd like to see him against John Jones.
Yeah, well, that's what
I'd like to see.
That's what I was just going to say. There's all these guys that are moving up the 205-pound division, and there's some guys that are sort of floating around the middle now. And you're going to start seeing guys like John Jones or Ryan Bader, or even that guy Phil Davis, who's moving up the these guys are going to start getting to the level where they're fighting guys like Machida and Rampage and who else. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see how the veterans do against these up and comers, because some of these guys are monsters, like John Jones and Phil Davis. Those guys are werewolves. They're terrifying.
Yeah, I agree, and it's one of the things where those are the fights that really make me interested, because they're the fights where we're looking at someone who we are convinced is terrifying, but we haven't seen him against somebody we've seen fight a million times in other organizations and for years and years, and so that's always very interesting to me. Is because there's always a chance that the old school guy like Rampage will blast the new guy in the chin, and then it makes you wonder. It's like, wow, was that guy really that good, or was it just,
Well,
so anyway, like the ramifications of something like that are pretty interesting. But
yeah, but they've already.
I don't know.
In the case of both Davis, well, not so much with Davis, but in the case of John Jones, they've done that. I mean, they put him against Vladimir Matyashenko. They put him against, like Brandon Vera, and it was just like he killed them, and his match. I think a match against, he even his first match was against, the American Psycho, Stephan Bonner or whatever, and he's destroyed all these guys. So it's not like John Jones hasn't already been tested. And Phil Davis, I mean, he's getting to the point now where he's fighting more and more difficult guys, and I don't see anybody stopping that guy anytime soon. He is a scary, scary cat.
Yeah, he's very good. Are we going to jump into the Phil Davis fight at this point?
Let's talk about the BJ Penn versus Matt Hughes fight. I mean, this to me was kind of what I thought was going to happen, but it happened way faster than I thought it would. Because in the first time these guys fought, BJ Penn just mowed down Matt Hughes like a Mow-O-Matic lawnmower mowing a lawn. And in the second one, he was destroying Matt Hughes till he hurt his ribs. And when he popped his own ribs, then he went out into the third round with injured ribs, thinking that he was so good he could still beat Matt Hughes, even though his ribs were injured, and Hughes proved him wrong in that instance. So Matt Hughes has proven that he can beat a badly injured BJ Penn, but in the other two fights, it's also been proven that a non-injured BJ Penn will absolutely destroy a non-injured Matt Hughes.
Yeah, I got this impression watching that fight. A couple things. Number one, that the crazy psycho blinking and talking to himself BJ Penn was back, which I liked. When I saw him in the corner getting ready for the fight, I actually remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were both like, oh man, it looks like, Cal Uno days BJ Penn. Like crazy BJ Penn. Yeah. So that was cool. But on the other side, Matt Hughes, I mean, he talked about having the intensity in the fight and stuff like that, but I think that he seemed to go at that first round like it was going to be a warm-up to rounds 2 and 3. Like, he didn't seem to have I don't know, he just kind of walked out to the octagon like, let's get going. And I'm not saying that he was just kind of looking for a walk in the park or anything like that, but he just didn't seem to have the ferocity in his eyes that BJ had. And so I love BJ Penn, and the old school classic UFC fighters, he's got to be one of my favorites, if not my favorite. But it was just good to see that, like that fire that BJ had, and it was great because I was actually sitting at the bar with, like, I'd say 8 guys. One guy is an old school college wrestler who actually fights in MMA now, and he's sitting in the middle of all of us, and he stands up and raises a beer and says, Matt Hughes is going to take this guy down and beat the hell out of him. And we all went, shut up, dude. And then, like, the fight started, and 20 seconds later, all of us were doing that thing and yelling and, giving him noogies and pouring beer in his face and kicking him in the balls and then lighting his face on. Okay, we didn't do any of that, but I'm just saying it was lighting his clothing on fire and taking his girlfriend away from him.
Starting to sound like you're jumping him into a gang or something. Anyway, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But yeah, no, it was a good feeling. I don't know, I really enjoyed telling the wrestler guy, you're wrong.
It's always nice to prove to somebody they're wrong. It's a very refreshing feeling. But I hear what you're saying about BJ Penn, because, I mean, was it just me, or, like, when he's on, he doesn't blink with both eyes at the same time. It's like one eye blinks, and a few seconds, and then he'll say something, and then a few seconds later, the other eye will blink. And that's a they use that as a test for crazy. If you're not blinking with both eyes at the same time, if one eye blinks, then you kind of talk to yourself a little bit, then the other eye blinks after that, and then you say something else, Fire trucks are red. Fire trucks are red left eye. I like to pet the dogs right eye. It's just like, yeah, that's a pretty good sign. You're in mind, And so Penn has a bunch of things on his side. 1, crazy. 2, he has athleticism through the roof. Like, he's flexible and stuff. I'm pretty sure he has obsessive compulsive disorder, where he's like, knock, knock, whistle, whistle, turn the knob, and he's got to, he can't get his mind. He said since his first day of jiu-jitsu, he has not stopped thinking about it. He took one class of jiu-jitsu, and ever since then, that's all he's thought about is just jiu-jitsu and and fighting in general. So he's definitely OCD when it comes to beating people up. And when you get a guy that has those things, crazy flexible, crazy in general, obsessive compulsive disorder, athletic, and mean, and not afraid to literally eat someone You know, like he beats somebody up and then he like licks the blood off his gloves. That is not normal. You know, I would never do that. And you know, I don't care how. I don't care how much faith I had in like pre-fight medicals. I would if my hands were soaked in someone's blood, I would not be licking my fingers like I just ate a bucket of KFC. I would not be doing that.
Yeah, the thing I gotta say is it's one of those fights though. I really wish he would have done that at the beginning of round 2, so I could have watched him a really entertaining, just an exchange or something in the first round. I was excited for BJ because I am a BJ Penn fan to see him do something that was obviously very meaningful to him. And after 2 back-to-back losses to Frankie Edgar, I'm sure he was just chomping at the bit to go in and do something probably precisely like that. But I remember like getting all excited in those 20 seconds and freaking out, and then going, "Oh wait, that's right." Then the fight's done.
Yeah, the fight's over.
Oh man.
No, I agree. I would like to have seen. I would like to have seen that fight go longer because I'm guaranteed there's some people out there who are saying that was a fluke, that BJ Penn landed a lucky punch, and that when I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, it was basically a repeat of the first fight minus the part where Penn choked Hughes. And a repeat also of like the first 2 rounds of the second fight previous to BJ Penn injuring his ribs. So, it's once something happens kind of 3 times, although there was some post, the second one didn't really work out BJ's way, but basically that happened 3 times. It just happened in various forms, and that's really not a fluke. But it would have been nice to see Penn beat the hell out of Hughes for an entire first round and then do that at the start of the second. You know what I mean? Just like shut down his shots and just prove that Hughes has nothing for him. And then. Well,
and I believe. I also believe that there's a difference too with Hughes and Penn. So they talk about how Matt Hughes is on a tear, and he's doing really well, and he's come back 2 back-to-back wins like that. But if you look in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I'm not knocking Enzo, and I'm not knocking Enzo's boy Ricardo Almeida. But I don't feel like it's A plus B plus A plus B plus C. They're not. It's not an equation. Like, you can't go, well, look, he handled Enzo. He did Ricardo Almeida. BJ's in trouble. Because I don't think I don't think that's like the next step. Like that would be like on that's like on playing a video game. Hey, he beat levels 1 and 2, so he's gonna blow through level 10.
That's not the case.
No. Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't like that.
Well, I mean, the main difference there is that BJ Penn his striking is much, much better than that of Matt Hughes. I mean, if you look at Matt Hughes' opponents, Matt Hughes has trouble with guys who are, much better strikers than him and people whom he is not able to take down. He's got to set up his takedowns with strikes. I mean, look at this last. So he lost to BJ Penn, who's a much better striker than him. Then he beat Ricardo Almeida, who he was able to outstrike, and forced Ricardo Almeida to shoot. Then he got him in a choke. He beat the tar out of Renzo Gracie. He beat up Matt Serra because his striking, I think, is better than Matt Serra's, although he almost did get knocked up by Matt Serra. But then previous to that, he lost to Thiago Alves and George St. Pierre,
But again, whose striking is both light years ahead of Matt Hughes. Yeah. Thiago Alves on the feet is light years ahead.
But then previous to that, in his defense, he beat Chris Lytle, who I think actually Chris Lytle is probably a better striker than Hughes. I'd actually like to see a rematch between Lytle and Hughes. I think that'd be a good. I would watch that actually. Anyway,
as a guy who's not a big fan of him, but is actually kind of happy that he's still around, I gotta say, I think that his position in the UFC is one that I appreciate if he does things like that. Like if he fights Chris Lytle, if they go back through, like BJ Penn's a great example of it. If they just go back through and go through some matches that, rematches and classic matchups with a guy like Matt Hughes, I think that's a great use for him at this point.
Well,
I don't think he's going to win the belt.
The UFC is definitely developing a masters division where they have certain guys who they know are, pay-per-view draws, but who aren't going to be wearing the belt anytime soon. Rich Franklin's in there now, and whether they like it or not, they're probably going to have Chuck Liddell in there, and Randy Couture. He's not going to be wearing the belt anytime soon. But
right,
these guys are all in the sort of masters division, and they have them match each other. Like they had Renzo Gracie in there and stuff. So whatever.
Yeah, and there can be legitimate trouble for each other, but they're not going to be legitimate trouble to say a John Jones or a
exactly,
or like some up and coming guy. You just name it.
These freaks coming up at 20. These 20-year-old freaks now that are coming up out of the juniors or whatever you want to call it. I mean, these guys that have been around, even though they're veterans, they kind of don't stand a chance because these dudes just They're faster, stronger, and they have well-rounded skills. They have no holes in their game, you know? It's like these guys, we're starting to see the mutants in MMA that we started talking about, 5 or 10 years ago, And, and they're starting to take over.
Case in point, Randy Couture in an interview was talking about his fight with Pedro Hizzo.
Mm-hmm.
He has a huge divot in his thigh muscle from leg kicks that Pedro Hizzo inflicted on him in 1942, or whenever they fought. 20 years before John Jones was even born.
Yeah.
And that just means that's all I have to say about that. That should give you an indication of what's going on here.
No, that really had no bearing on what I was just saying, but.
No, I'm just saying that Randy Couture, people like that, they have scars that are older than some of these guys.
Oh, yeah, for
and
sure.
They're not just going to show up tomorrow. I mean, the sum total of their activity in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these young guys are fresh. They haven't had a chance to go through all the wars. And, at some point, athleticism and youth is just going to make it so, Randy can't make a, 14th run for the title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or whatever he's at by now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to happen. So.
Yeah.
But,
let's talk about this other fight. Did you see this fight between this guy Falcao, Goncalves or whatever, Jose Falcao, and then Gerald Harris? And it was like this guy Falcao just waited and waited and waited and waited for his opportunity, and then blasted Gerald Harris and almost finished him in the first 2 rounds. And then in the third round, he just rolled out the lazy boy and just sort of hung back and cruised his way to a decision. And I thought that was pretty. Bad? I don't know. Is bad the appropriate word? Yeah, I'll use bad.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely I watched that fight in the first round. I had a bunch of my friends that don't train but like the UFC, and it was funny to watch because the few of my friends that don't train to watch the UFC were like starting to wrinkle their nose and say, this is boring, et cetera, et cetera. But me and a couple of my buddies who are boxers or Muay Thai guys were like, whoa, hold on. I don't know about this. This is in the first round. We're like, I don't know about this. I think something crazy is going to happen. And sure enough, the guy blew up, and he threw some crazy strikes, beautiful strikes, put him on his ass, and then almost choked him out, et cetera, et cetera. And the point is that if he would have finished the fight, I would have said brilliant. I would have said, this guy's great. He's awesome. And I would have, invoked the name of Jose Aldo in his last fight when he fought Manny Gamburian, and we all said he just kind of surgically took him apart.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, then he just chilled out after that, and it's like, So it went from potential phenom to come on, bro.
Yeah,
that's how I felt about that fight, and I don't know. I still think big things could come from this guy, but yeah, I mean, dude, come on. And Gerald Harris.
And what was especially weird is that Falcao waited and waited and waited in the first round, and then swarmed him and nearly finished him, I think, in the first round, and did basically sort of the same in the second. But then he waited throughout the entire duration of the third round, and then when there was 10 seconds left in the third round, he rushed him. And it was like, why did you...
And started going, come on, man, come on.
It was just weird. And the second thing that was especially weird about that fight is in the round where he had him in a choke and the round ended. That round actually ended 7 seconds early.
Really?
Yeah, they on the pay-per-view you can actually see it. There's snap, 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 and then it goes to like 9, 8, and then the horn sounds. So there was clearly 7 seconds left, and the Athletic Commission is doing an investigation into that, which wouldn't be so weird if it weren't for the guy was like dead to rights in a choke, and then like
actually that's incredible because he would have been he could very well have been asleep. In the 7 seconds.
Oh, for sure. So anyway,
wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there was an error in timekeeping, and the round where Falcao had Harris in a choke, that round ended 7 seconds too early, and it ended with Harris deep in a choke. So, if that had been done properly, Falcao would have walked out of there with a submission win and maybe even submission of the night. Although, realistically, I think submission of the night still would have gone to Phil Davis for his win over Tim Boetsch, which is. Anyway.
Didn't Soteropoulos get it?
Did he?
I thought he got it for the beautiful textbook submission of Joe Lozon, which I predicted.
I'm pretty sure Phil Davis got it for his Mr. Wonderful submission. But whatever. Soteropoulos did another good Kimura too. Let's talk about the Davis versus Boetsch fight. That one went the fight between Davis and Boetsch. That one went down literally exactly like I thought it would. You know, like the Barbarian,
I
tough
agree.
guy, but man, Davis is one of these cybernetic werewolves that are coming up out of the, I don't know how old Phil Davis is, but he's not that old, and man, he is.
And he put him in a recess, like a recess submission, like your big brother chicken wings you, basically.
Yeah, no kidding. Phil Davis, he's 26. And man, it's you can have experience and ferocity and skills, but youth is also means something.
I mean, the thing that always fascinates me with some of these wrestlers, like Phil Davis is a good example. First of all, I mean, look at his thighs.
Mm-hmm.
He's just massive legs. Like, it's just kind of freakish to the point where it doesn't even look like they belong on a guy of his size.
Yeah.
Like someone had computer generated the image and kind of inflated the thighs, almost exaggerated, to the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand the anatomy of the double leg takedown. I get it. I understand it. Even done one or two in my day, probably not very well, but I get it. What I don't get is how you can take a man of Tim Bosch's size and hit a double leg and just toss him through the air like a sack of potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few guys in the UFC that can do that, and Phil Davis is obviously one of them. I mean, John Jones throwing around Stephen Bonner last year is another example.
That was
that
was many years ago. That was in 1961.
back in Pride 1, when John Jones threw around Stephen Bonner. Sorry, misinformation. But I don't know. That's when I kind of shake my head when I see Phil Davis throw these double legs that just rocket someone across the octagon.
Yeah, it's
scary.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. But like I say, I mean, these guys that are coming up now, like Phil Davis and John Jones and some of the other younger dudes, man, they are absolutely terrifying. And dudes that have been around for a while, like, it's a new chapter in MMA that's starting, Like guys like Jose Aldo and, they're completely 100% in all the skill areas they need to be. And they're really athletic, and they're young, and they have not gone through the wars that guys like Tim Boach and Randy Couture and Matt Hughes have gone through. The guys that are a little bit older, they've been around a while, Like, there's something to being like the veterans of the sport, do not have like the T100s do not have what it takes to beat the T1000s. That's just how it is.
Yep.
So, and on that note, let's talk about Soteropoulos versus Joe Lozon. I thought that was going to be an amazing fight, and it was. And I thought it was interesting that Soteropoulos came in with Eddie Bravo in his corner, and then won the fight using nothing that Eddie Bravo had taught him. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at all the rubber guard stuff he tried to do on Joe Lozon, it didn't really play out, And he ended up winning with just straight-up jiu-jitsu. Be on top of the guy, pass his guard, and then take his arm off, So...
Yep.
He might have been covered head to toe in neoprene with Eddie Bravo in his corner, yelling, swallow the walrus and do the drowning witchcraft or whatever he calls stuff, But because Eddie Bravo has a name for everything, right? So he's telling him to do like the funky zombie and the peel the walruses, whatever. And but Soteropoulos, he ended up winning the fight just with good old fashioned whoop ass. He got on top of Joe Lozon, passed his guard, put him in a Kimura. Lozon got out, put him in another Kimura, and finished it. And all the time Soteropoulos was on his back trying to tie himself around Joe Lozon in weird noodle-legged fashion, Lozon just exploded out of it, and those were the times when Soteropoulos was in the most trouble. So, I hate to make this podcast a piss on the rubber guard podcast, but, and I'm not saying that the rubber guard isn't part of MMA, but there's something called get up. And, there's a reason wrestling is so predominant in MMA. It's because wrestlers are able to be on top of people. And when you're on your back tying your legs up around somebody, you're kind of resigning to yourself that you're on the bottom and that you're not going to be able to escape, And I think it's a better idea is to invest yourself in getting up.
Yeah, it does. It seems to make more sense. I can't really speak from an educated jiu-jitsu point, but yeah, logically speaking, I can understand. I can agree with you. I don't know. I got it back to what we were talking about, but more in a more specific sense. I always talk about George Soteropoulos and how I really like his fighting style, and I'm glad that he keeps winning. That's why that was probably my favorite of the night. Joe Lozon is just a beast. He's an absolute beast, but Soteropoulos took it out of him. I mean, he made him tired. He made him work. And I think that Lozon overplayed his hand in terms of his cardio, And I know that Soteropoulos must have been very tired as well, but I think he just had enough to keep him in there. But the thing is, they're both very technical fighters, and they're both really crafty. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, in my opinion, I don't know that the Kimura. I don't want to give the Kimura to Soteropoulos as some sort of tactical victory in the sense that, Lozon had never seen anything like that before, and whoa, he just got nailed. I think that Joe Lozon was just slowly getting grinded down cardio-wise.
Yeah.
And it put him in a position like you would be in a jiu-jitsu match where you're at the end of your rope, fitness-wise, and you're just tired, that somebody can get someone.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So kudos to Soteropoulos. He just grinded him out, and there was a Kimura, and he grabbed it, and Lozon's like, oh, shit, my arm's not in the way it's supposed to be, and all right, that's it. Boom.
Yeah, well, that's the way fights should be. I mean, there's certain guys that have, they do exactly what they're supposed to do. They move forward, they throw strikes, they go for the takedown, they get the takedown, they pass the guard, and they go for a submission, And that's what Soteropoulos did, and it was obvious by the end of it that he was a better fighter, and he won because he's a better fighter. And those are the kind of fights I like to see.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't that Lozon wasn't giving him trouble, because he was. That was the best. I think that's what made the fight. If I could say that of the night that was the perfect fight, that was a perfect fight.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that not only was Soteropoulos looking great, and like you said, just fighting, and winning, and then submitting, but he also took some heat. I mean, he got cracked a few times from Lozon. We got to see him. There were points, if you go back and watch the tape, there are points where Lozon could have turned the tide, and Soteropoulos could have started to lose. But he didn't, he stayed right in there. And I don't know, I just think, I'm excited to see Soteropoulos' next fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to see him in the title picture.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Because I think he really puts some serious pressure on a guy like Frankie Edgar.
Yeah. And is it just me, or does Soteropoulos, his body from the waist up is just, it looks weird. It's not proportioned. You know what I mean? It's like his arms are too skinny and his chest is too thick or something. I can't exactly get my mind around it, but there's something not right with that guy. Maybe that's just how Australians are. I don't know.
I think it's posture. He's kind of slumped forward. One of my friends says he looks like he's about 60 years old. Like if you took in movies where they take an old actor and then they airbrush him to make him look like he's 40, but he's actually 65 in real life.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that slump. He has kind of a slumped upper body.
I don't know. Do you ever see the movie League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I saw the commercial for that, and I opted not to.
Well, yeah, it's not a very good movie. My point is, there's one guy in that movie where it's a group of superheroes that are like the old, there's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man. There's Mina Harker who turns into a vampire. Anyway, my point is, there's one guy in there that becomes like Mr. Hyde by taking this special serum, and I think George Soteropoulos got his body type by taking that same serum.
Yeah. Okay.
By taking the Hyde serum that turns you into this weird mutant that's super strong. It's like he's sort of turned halfway from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde. He's sort of developed some musculature, but he hasn't finished his complete mutant transformation just yet.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess. I haven't seen the movie, but I'll follow you on it.
And I don't know how he's going to do it, if he starts fighting guys like BJ Penn or Frankie Edgar or whoever. Or Gray Maynard.
I would love to see him fight BJ Penn.
Yeah, that
because
would be
they both have great.
Legitimately good strikes. I actually did see George Soteropoulos fight not BJ Penn. I saw George. I was going to say, what the hell am I thinking? I actually had a brain fart there. I saw George Soteropoulos fight Marcelo Garcia in a grappling match, and for some reason my mind equated Marcelo Garcia to BJ Penn. So I was going to say I actually did see George Soteropoulos fight BJ Penn in Abu Dhabi, but that fight didn't occur. It was Marcelo Garcia versus Soteropoulos, and he got him with a north-south choke and put him to sleep, I think. But, yeah, that'd be a great fight, Soteropoulos versus BJ Penn. I'd watch that for sure. Absolutely.
I'd like to, honestly, he's one of my favorite grapplers in the UFC, too, because he's good. He is aggressive, man.
Yeah,
he's just going for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's just scary. On the ground, I've seen good strikers, I watch boxing and K1, and I've seen a lot of amazing strikers in fights, but grappling wise, he's probably the most freakishly. He's just will not stop, and it's kind of freaky. When he grabs stuff, he grabs it ferociously and quickly, and So anyway,
well, he's not
BJ
playing
Penn's
around
a phenomenal. Yeah, he's phenomenal on the ground. I'd love to see Soteropoulos and BJ Penn tangle on the ground. That would be amazing.
Yeah. And there's just one more. There's one more fight on here that I want to. Well, maybe we don't even need to talk about this. But Brian Foster versus Matt Brown. I wish Matt Brown would figure out that unlike his nickname, he's not immortal. Has he watched Highlander too many times? I don't know.
Any time Matt Brown comes into the picture, you just have to do that one. The whole he's not immortal thing.
Oh, he's not.
What do you got against Matt Brown?
Nothing.
Is it Cincinnati? Do you not like guys from Ohio?
Is he from Ohio? It's nothing to do with that, really. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe I'm just hung up on guys that have unrealistic nicknames. I mean, it's one thing to call yourself the Pit Bull or this or that or whatever, but to call yourself immortal, you know? Like, what if a guy called himself the God? What if his nickname was the God? Would that be an appropriate nickname for a fighter? Or would that be unrealistic?
It would be weird. It would be a little strange.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit weird, yeah. So, I don't know. So anyway.
I don't know. I felt bad for Matt Brown because things aren't going his way. He looked so good for a while there, and he's having a rough time of it right now.
Maybe he's being punished by the gods for his arrogant nickname.
Maybe so. Maybe it's catching up with him finally.
Because he's lost now to Ricardo Almeida, Chris Lytle, and Brian Foster. But that being said, Brian Foster looked amazing. He looked like a scary dude. He did like a jumping, spinning heel kick. He did like a couple takedowns. He did like a guillotine choke. That guy has some skills.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, his boxing was the only thing I saw that I didn't like, but everything else was awesome.
You didn't like his boxing?
Everything else was very good. Nah, he was a little too stiff. But everything else was really nice and fluid. I really liked the spinning heel kick. That was cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
The fact that, it's always funny. See, it's really interesting in MMA because right now, those kind of techniques always make me smile to myself. Because, like okay, for example, I do Muay Thai with a lot of guys who today are absolutely in love with Muay Thai, but they come from no traditional martial art background. So when we spar, every now and then, just like for fun, just to goof off, I'll throw a spinning heel kick at somebody's head, controlled, not trying to kill them or anything, but I can do that. I can also do spinning axe kicks and, funky shit. But that's because I have a belt in Kung Fu. Like, I'm a Kung Fu guy.
What is a spinning axe kick?
What I'm saying, where you spin around and an axe kick comes over top of your head and down on your clavicle, basically, or on your forehead.
Wow.
It's coming straight down. It's an old school Taekwondo kick, and it's really flashy. But my point is that the reason I can do that is because I did traditional martial arts all grown up, and they were all kick-heavy sports. You come from traditional martial arts, you know what I'm talking about. So, it's really interesting. So there's a lot of guys in my Thai boxing gym that have no background of kicking. So the Thai kick is the only kick they know how to do, and they're working as hard as they can on that one kick. And MMA, there's a lot of guys that got into MMA that have no kicking background. So for me, it's funny. Like, you watch an MMA fight start, and you have no idea whether the guy can throw a single rudimentary side kick, or all he knows is leg kicks. Because there's a lot of guys running around the MMA scene that can throw some okay leg kicks, and that's it. But so when you watch the Foster fight, when he throws a swing, those are the kind of moments in the MMA fights for me that make me smile, because I'm like, okay, that guy went to a karate class or two. Because you just don't know these days.
No kidding. Especially with these weird cyborgs that are coming up from the teenage class right now. You have these guys that can, like John Jones, that can do like a suplex and a jumping heel kick and also have like a good triangle choke. You just don't know what to expect from any of them, right? And Brian Foster apparently is another one of those. It's crazy. It's insane.
But it's funny, back in the day though, karate, taekwondo, you kind of get a sense for the belt system. You kind of knew if someone says I have a blue belt in karate, you kind of knew the kicks that they would probably be able to do by now. If someone says I'm a black belt in karate, but there's no fancy kicking regimen in MMA at all. No. So it's a mix. You just don't know.
You just don't know.
Like you said, you can do a suplex, you can do a spinning heel kick. Who knows nowadays? It actually makes it kind of fun. Unless you're the guy that gets heel kicked. So.
True enough. And on that note, I'm going to shut this bad boy down. On the note of we just don't know. Because there's nothing going on this weekend. But in the coming weeks, there's an Ultimate Fighter finale, and there's a couple more UFCs and stuff. So we'll cover those next week.
Have we ever even commented on this season of The Ultimate Fighter at all?
Not so far. I haven't been watching it this season. Frankly, I'm kind of sick of it.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do a marathon. You have to jump on the couch and do a marathon and eat
Yeah,
food and
we'll do a marathon
watch
before.
all that stuff.
Yeah, we'll watch all and before the finales. We'll review all the crap that happened next week or the week after or whenever the finale is, and we'll do it before then. But for today, we're shutting this bad boy down.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving to me. And
happy Thursday to me.
Thanksgiving, yeah, and a happy Thanksgiving Thursday to you.
All right. See you later.
Full Contact Fighter Radio is produced, written, and recorded by Jeff Wombat Mazeris. If you would like to advertise or appear on Full Contact Fighter Radio, or if you have a comment about the show, email wombat@fcfighter.com. Music for this podcast has been provided by podsafeaudio.com. Contact Fighter Radio is sponsored by the Full Contact Fighter Pro Shop, your one-stop shopping destination for no-holds-barred fight videos and FCF gear, including hats, fight shorts, sweatpants, shirts, and more. Order and get a free issue of Full Contact Fighter, the #1 no-holds-barred and mixed martial arts publication in the world. Click FCF Shop at fcfighter.com.
Okie dokie, welcome back to Full Contact Fighter Radio with myself, Jeff Wombat Mazeris. We have the pleasure now of being joined by a friend of the show, a friend of myself, Krzysztof, the Polish experiment Soszynski, who's fresh back from a whirlwind trip around Europe. Krzysztof, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Nice talking to you again.
Yeah. So give us the highs and lows of your trip. Obviously, one of the highs is, beating Goran Reljic in the UFC, but, give us the Cole's notes of the voyage.
The whole month of the voyage, yeah, it was a great trip. I love fighting away from the States. I love fighting out of the country. I love traveling. My wife and I really enjoy just heading over. We had a chance to, go to Australia earlier this year. I had a chance to corner Dan in Ireland. I had a chance to corner Terry Sokuju in England. I just love to travel, so it's great to be able to experience the world and then get paid for it.
Yeah, no kidding. And your nickname is the Polish experiment, so obviously you probably are welcome in Poland.
Oh, absolutely. Had a great time. As soon as the fight was over, the very next day, my wife and I flew over to Krakow, Poland, and visited some family and friends. Visited my grandparents, my babcia and my judge in Stalowa Wola. We spent there about 4 days just hanging out with them, and then finished off in Warsaw, where I did a huge TV interview for Orange Sport, Poland, Polish TV station, sport TV stations. Did an hour episode on. He's going to air on December 3rd. So just very excited. It was a lot of fun. It was fantastic opportunity and fantastic experience.
Yeah. It sounds like fun. I mean, man, getting paid to travel that kicks butt.
No, absolutely.
So this guy Goran Reljic, I mean, going into this, what did you think of him? When I saw that you were facing this guy Goran Reljic, he had already lost, I think, a few times in the UFC, and to me, it looked like he was not really in your league. What did you think sizing him up when you first heard that you were going to be facing him?
Well, I'm very excited about the opportunity first. I always would like the fights that are going to be exciting. And looking back at his last 3 fights, he destroyed Wilson Gluvea, this first UFC fight. Then he fought 2 tough guys at 185, and I think the 2 losses that he had, I think that the weight cut hurt him. So I thought I was going to face a really tough, fresh, ready to go Goran Reljic, and kind of felt differently for me after the first round. I felt him slowing down after the first round. I felt him gassing out. I felt him being a little weaker. And I really saw the difference between the second and third, where he was standing between the first and the second, and then all of a sudden he had to take a seat between the second and the third round. And that right there told me that I have him. And that really was a big turning point in the fight for me, because I was really worried about those 2 takedowns he had in the first round and the one in the second round. He might have been up on the cards, or it would have been even. But I kind of figured I won the first one. The second one was really close. He probably had it. And the third one was going to be the winner. So as soon as he sat down in between the rounds, I knew I had him. So, my conditioning was great. I have a great system that I do for my conditioning, and it works well for me.
Yeah. And, did you feel any added pressure on you? Because you were coming off a loss there to your rematch with Stephan Bonner. So was that on your mind that you got to get a win this time? Were you feeling any extra pressure?
For me personally, I don't really feel pressure like that. I train my butt off. I train really hard, and if I know that I'm prepared 100%, and as long as I put 100% effort in every fight, regardless if I win or lose, I'm going to be happy. So, obviously winning is better than losing. But if I know I'm going to lose eventually. Here and there I'm going to lose one or 2 here. It happens. It's a sport. It's 50-50 every time you step into that cage. We're fighting with 4-ounce gloves. You land one of those fights, one of those gloves, one of those punches on a perfect spot in the face, and you're going to sleep. So it's a sport where it's 50-50 every time I step in there. I know I'm going to lose some, but if I put in 100% effort every time, I'm going to be happy with the outcome.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you've trained you trained with Team Tompkins for a while. You trained with Couture for a while. You mentioned Dan Henderson, Terry Sokaju, and now you're training. Who are you training with now?
I'm training at Rain Training Center with Mark Munoz, all of Ryan Parsons' guys like Mawal the Wall, Patrick Cummings, and Mayhem Miller. On top of that, Jay Silva's there, Rafael Davis. We get the chance to train with the Nogueras. We get a chance to train with Anderson Silva and Machida. I mean, we train with. We also go to King's MMA with Rafael Cordero's place, with Fabricio Verdum and Bob Ballou and all the great fighters there. I mean, it's just fortunate to be in a great place, surrounded by great people, great trainers, great training partners, and it's just a fantastic feeling to have those guys, A-level guys around me to help me every day. And then you can tell in my fights, I'm getting better with each fight. I'm more calm, more relaxed every time. My striking's getting better. My wrestling, my jiu-jitsu is getting better. Just very happy about the whole situation.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you're training with guys like that, I mean, when you face a guy like Goran Reljic, I mean, no slight against him, but it must be massive for your confidence. I mean, if you're training with these A-level guys like King Mo and whoever, then you fight a guy like Goran Reljic, and you're like, well, what is this guy going to have that I don't face every day in the gym?
No, exactly. And at the end of the day, every time I have my tri-striking coach Ed Buckley and Rafael Cordero tell me how good I'm looking, how much better I'm getting. Every time Mark Munoz and Mo Lawal and everybody else tells me how much better my wrestling, my jiu-jitsu is, it's going to be positive. I'm going to always feel positive going into every fight because I know I'm not facing the type of competition I train with every day. So it's just a great opportunity for me to be out here. The last 3 years have been fantastic, and every day is getting better and better. I'm learning so much from all these guys.
Yeah, yeah. So after your fight, did you have any injuries at all? Hands, eyes, anything like that?
Oh, I'm beaten up, dude. After my last 3 wars that I had to with Stephan Bonner, and now this last 3-rounder, I'm going to be definitely getting some time off. I need 4 surgeries.
4?
I need to get both my knees fixed. I have 2 torn cartilages in both my knees. They're just really bad right now. It's even hard to walk.
Wow.
My nose is broken, so I need to get that fixed. My hand, which I heard either I heard it at the end of the second or at the beginning of the third. It's not broken, but it's something's wrong with it. I mean, I can't even pick up a 3-pound dumbbell, and I can't make a fist, and it's been already 2 weeks after the fight.
Wow.
So, I called the UFC. I explained to them what the situation is. We're going to see a doctor next week. Hopefully it's nothing serious. But by 2 weeks out, and I still can't make a fist. There's something definitely wrong with it. So we're going to get it checked out. So I'm going to be out for a little while, just getting some rest and healing up. But hopefully to be back in hopefully April, May. We'll see how it goes.
And did your injuries at all interfere with your ability to enjoy the rest of Europe? I mean, because after a fight, if you're all busted up, can you really take in go sightseeing with a broken face?
Yeah, the first few days were pretty tough. We bruised up and swollen everywhere, and everything's hurting. But it's just enjoying the family and the time, just eating a lot of good food, kind of eating a lot of good healthy, well, not healthy, but greasy Polish food. It really kind of helped out to loop up the joints a little bit and stuff. I was able to move around, and after a week or so, everything just kind of all the little aches and pains go away, and just the major stuff kind of stays with you. So I was able to walk around, and I didn't train anything like that. I went to a couple of gyms over there and had a good time with the guys, but didn't train. I'm not going to train for a little while. I'm just going to rest up and get these things healed so I can be ready for my next one.
Yeah. And so how much of the other fights were you able to take in? Where in the order did you fall? So did you watch fights before your fight and then watch fights after yours?
Yeah, I don't get too stressed out when I'm in the locker room, so I get to enjoy all the fights. So I was actually able to watch from the very first fight till my fight. I was the second one on the main card up until the main. So I got the chance to watch all the fights and see all the guys fight. The funny thing is the second time it happened in Australia too. I was in a locker room where everybody lost except for myself. So it was a really weird feeling because in Australia the same thing exactly happened. Where 3 guys that I was in the locker room all lost their fights, and I was the only one that won. And it was both times that happened where we fought, and the first 3 guys always lost. So it was a little scary because I hate to be in one of those locker rooms. Everybody's losing. I'm like, oh shoot, man, I don't want to lose, man. I really don't want to use. It was a weird fight because everybody comes back and they're all down and stuff, and you're like, oh shoot, I gotta go next. Everybody's all down in the gutters, basically crying in tears because they fought their ass off and they didn't win. So, I told my coach as soon as I got out there, man, I'm not losing this fight. There's no way we're going 0-4 in this locker room. So, everything worked out really well.
Yeah, and who was in your corner over there in Germany?
Jeremy, I had Phil Petruzzelli, who I asked, who actually is a decent, a pretty good friend of mine. He actually came down to California and trained with us for a few days. He had his, he had his fight over there. I had mine. I asked him to help me out a little bit in the corner if he could. He said, yeah. And then my striking coach, Ed Buckley, who I've been with now for almost 2 years, just a great guy, who's really helped me out with my kicks. I don't know if you noticed, just my kicks are getting better and better in every fight, as well as he's just a man on a mission when it comes to conditioning, and he really helps me out. That's why, I'm able to go the full 3 rounds, no problem, at a really high pace.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the other fights, what did you think of the main event, the Okami versus Marquardt decision? I thought that possibly Marquardt deserved the decision, but Okami got it. There's some controversy there. What did you think?
Well, I actually thought Okami pressed the action a little bit more. He threw more punches. He controlled the whole cage throughout the whole entire fight. Ended up on top a few times as well. Did a really good job of taking Marquardt down. And to be honest with you, I was kind of shocked at Marquardt's performance. He looked really off. He looked really slow and sluggish. Looked like he didn't want to really exchange. He was running away from Okami. I thought Okami deserved the decision, and he got it. It wasn't a great fight for any means. It was pretty boring. But I think Okami did enough to win that fight. And I think even Marquardt, I was just really shocked at his, just how really sluggish he looked in that fight.
Yeah. And were there any other fights on the card that sort of stuck out for you besides your own, obviously?
Oh, definitely. I really enjoyed Dwayne Bag Ludwig. His fight was awesome. He got dropped in the first round really hard, came back strong, had great cardio. It was nice to see him get his win in the UFC. Man, he's been around for such a long time. I remember him back to the very first Strikeforce show that happened a few years back in San Jose, and he cornered me for that fight. He flew in and cornered me. We've never even met before. He was in my corner, so we go way back, and I was really proud of him, what he did, and how he came back from that, being dropped in the first round to win the fight like that. It was great to see. I was very happy for him.
Yeah, and this card, it just looked like they had some guys that they wanted to use as sort of sacrificial lambs. Like they put Peter Sabata against Amir Sadala. They put Nick Oshipchek, who had lost a couple against Dwayne Ludwig, and then I don't know. Goran Reljic against you seemed to be kind of like they were setting people up to be cut. And I think after that UFC, they cut all 3 of those guys. Do you think they were cutting the, separating the wheat from the chaff, or whatever you want to call it, with this one?
Yeah, it seems like now with the WEC and UFC merger, they're cutting guys more and more, and performance seemed to be a big one. If you look at Daryl Harris just being cut after going 3-0 with 2 bonuses to his last fight, and he gets cut immediately after. That tells you right there what the plans are for the UFC as far as entertaining the fans and entertaining the people who are basically paying you. You put on a good show, you're going to stay, you're going to stick around regardless if you win or lose. If you put on a crappy show, then most likely going to get cut. You look at guys like Tyson Griffin, who's coming off a few losses. He wasn't cut, but he's always in there busting his butt every day, every time he's out there. So that's my plan. I'm the same way. I want to always put on entertaining shows for the fans and for the UFC, and I want to stick around for a long time.
Yeah. And did you see that last UFC, or were you in an airplane when Jackson and Machida were thrown down?
Oh no, actually, I was in Poland. I was at my grandparents' house. They didn't have internet, but one of my cousins did. And the fights over there in Poland were actually happening at 4:00 in the morning. The UFC was airing at 4 in the morning. I was still sleeping, but the next morning I had a chance to go up to my cousin and watch all the fights from the internet. So cool. I had a chance to see most of the fights. I actually thought that Machida won that fight. To be honest, I thought he did a lot more damage, especially in that 3rd round, and I definitely thought he won the first. So. It is what it is. You can't leave it in the hands of the judges, I guess.
Yeah. And what's going on with MMA judges these days? Like, there just seems to be some really weird stuff. Like, they should get guys like Pat Miletich, Baz Rutten, Ken Shamrock, maybe guys that have been in the cage to do some judging. Right now, they have guys that are flower arranging watching these fights. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, I know. It's true. I also don't think that the tempo and must system is a very good system in MMA. To use the tempo and must system for a 3-round fight, it just doesn't seem to work. You know what I mean? Like, a guy can win the first round, guy can barely scrape off the second and get destroyed in the third, and he wins the fight. It's just, I don't think it's fair when a fight like that is judged on a tempo and must system for a 3-round fight. It makes more sense in boxing when you have a 12-round fight, 10-round fight, but in MMA, the tempo and must system is just. I don't think it's the right system to use, especially when you have judges who are a lot of times are looking at the takedowns as being what's going to decide the fight or not, rather than looking at who's doing more damage, who's controlling the ring more, and who's the aggressive one. So. It is what it is for now, but I definitely think they should look at a new system for MMA and scoring and judging.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be, remember in the old Pride days where they judged the fight as a whole and they judged on attempts to finish? There were some weird decisions over there, but lately there seems to be a lot more sort of weirder decisions in the octagon.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I definitely agree with you. I mean, I definitely like the judge the whole fight as a whole. It kind of makes more sense, especially on the fight being, like I said, 3 rounds, or in Pride days when it was 2 rounds, or 1-5 and 1-10 and a 5. So I mean, it's there's going to be definitely a different system put in place for mixed martial arts. But the key is, once again, you can't leave it in the hands of the judges. You try to try out there and finish the fight. I'm one of those guys. I try to finish the fight every time, or at least want to make it exciting for the fans.
Yeah. How many fights have you had? I mean, most of your fights have not really gone to decision. It's either been knockout or submission or what have you.
Well, I've had 3 fights go to decision now. I had the Brandon Vera fight go to decision.
Yep.
I would consider, I guess, my first Stephan Bonner fight in Australia. I won it based on a cut, but it was a 3rd round. He could have gone to decision.
Yeah.
And then this last one was decision. 3 out of 7 fights I've gone to decision. I've been fortunate enough to win 3 bonuses. So it's been a good run so far for me in the UFC. Having a record of 5-2. I mean, I never in my dreams would have thought I would ever have a 5-2 record in the UFC. I guarantee you that a lot of the people back home never thought I'd get this far. So it's nice to see that hard work is paying off.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you. I mean, you and I used to train together, and I enjoy watching you fight.
That's right. My first day, man. You were there my very first day when I walked in.
And you were like 295 back then. And what are you now? Like, what do you walk at? What do you walk around at now? Like 220?
I walk around 235, 240. Wow. I'm still a big like heavyweight.
Yeah.
When it comes down to training I usually take my camps nice and long. I like them for about 15 weeks. So I'll start about 238, 239, head down to about 223 the week before the fight, and then cut the last 10, 12 pounds before the fight on the week before the fight.
Wow. And then so when you step into the octagon, what are you weighing at usually?
Usually about 223, 224.
Wow, you rehydrate.
I put on about 20 pounds of food in that one day.
Wow.
I get a nice 2 gallons of water in, which is about 10, 12, 14 pounds right there alone.
Yeah. And
then get a couple solid meals in, and then ready to go. I felt really big and strong for this fight. I knew Goran was going to be a little smaller than me. He said himself, I talked to him after, I think it was only 212, 213, as I, in the other case, was about 223. You can tell that in the fight. I felt I was hitting a little harder. I felt that I was a little faster, and I definitely felt a lot stronger than he did.
Yeah, and right now in the UFC, I mean, God, there's so many nightmare guys. There's John Jones, he's 205. Phil Davis, he's 205. Ryan Bader, he's 205. Those guys are terrifying.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm in a set division. I just got to keep training really, really hard, and just putting my time in every day, and then everything will work itself out. Like I said, I know one of those guys who's not a great, well-rounded fighter, or who's got great Muay Thai skills or great wrestling skills, but I do have a really good heart. I put everything on the line, and then the key with me is my conditioning. If I can push somebody for 15 minutes, they're going to break eventually. And I've been fortunate enough to break a few people in the UFC when it comes to my conditioning.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you're a triple threat. You've got good wrestling, you've got a Kimura that no one can stop, and you've got a right hand that's like hitting somebody with a 2x4. So people aren't really sure what to watch for.
No, exactly. I like to mix things up. I feel that if my striking is not working, and then if it is working, and somebody will take me down, then my jiu-jitsu my bottom game or my top game will take over, and it will, or if I need to stuff a takedown, I definitely will, or if I need to pick somebody down, I definitely will. I'm a well-rounded fighter. I'm not the best in everything, but I'm decent in all the areas, and it's getting me climbing up that ladder, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. So now you got to get your 4 surgeries, which I still can't believe, and then you're aiming to come back. So you're aiming to come back in the spring.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely need some time off. Like I said, this year has been brutal for me. 3 really, really tough fights. I'm definitely looking forward to just having the month of December and January off, where I can get everything fixed, get all my surgeries in. Thank God it's nothing major. It's like I have a torn MCL or anything like that, or a broken orbital bone or anything like that. It's 4 minor things, but they're going to take a little bit of time to heal. then hopefully get back in the gym come February, March, and then be ready for hopefully beginning of May, end of May, and maybe even end of April.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks for being a guest on the Full Contact Fighter Radio, and again, it's nice talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you fight again in the UFC.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. Pleasure talking to you, man. All the best to you at your gym back there in Vancouver.
Thank you very much.
Full Contact Fighter Radio is produced, written, and recorded by Jeff Wombat Mazaris. If you would like to advertise or appear on Full Contact Fighter Radio, or if you have a comment about the show, email wombat@fcfighter.com. Music for this podcast has been provided by podsafeaudio.com. Contact Fighter Radio is sponsored by the Full Contact Fighter Pro Shop, your one-stop shopping destination for no-holds-barred fight videos and FCF gear, including hats, fight shorts, sweatpants, shirts, and more. Order and get a free issue of Full Contact Fighter, the #1 no-holds-barred and mixed martial arts publication in the world. Click FCF Shop at fcfighter.com.